Hey, hello everyone. Welcome back to day 28 of 40 days of JavaScript. Today is the day for project. We're supposed to do a mini project. Though we call it as mini project, but none of our projects are really mini, right? So today we'll be building a project using everything that we have learned in this module, the asynchronous JavaScript module. I hope you enjoyed the module. You've learned something new. Let's put everything together to build something. But before we do that, I want to let you know that it's just yesterday we did a live, and on that live we built something using fetch APIs, promises, etc. The focus was not just building something cool, but also about writing clean code refactoring, how to go about designing things, all those things. So in case you have missed that live, I would request you to go over that because you will be having an opportunity to do another project building along with the one that we'll be doing today. All the code for that live project is on tapaScript GitHub. You just need to go to 40 days of JavaScript repository, scroll down, go to this folder called live. Inside this, you will find let's code / inventory. This is the one that we have built the other day, the inventory dashboard. And here you will get all the code, all the instructions of how to build it and what to do with it. Today, once we finish building our project, you will again find the source code of this project in the same repository 40 days of JavaScript, but this time it will be under day 28 because we are now on day 28. All right, so let's get started. Let's first understand what are we building today. Some of you may be aware of this particular API service. It's called REST countries. I like this API because it provides a lot of information about all the countries, about their geographies, about their population, language, everything. Now, if you have an API like that, an API service like that, you can think about building something really cool with it, right? So what we're going to do today, we are going to build an application for Country Explorer using this particular REST API service. Let's first understand what it offers. So if you come to restcountries.com, the link is given in the video description. You can go ahead and click on it. Hit this URL, https restcountries.com v version 3.1/all. It will take a while to fetch you the data, but once you have the data, you will notice that you have the data for all the countries, right? And how this data is represented? Of course, the data is represented as an array of object where each of the object represent one country and one country information. So if we dive into one of the object, it says that there is something called name, and there is a common name and there is an official name. We know there are some countries which has common name and then there is an official name. For example, Fiji is one of the country that's a common name, but official name is Republic of Fiji. Then there are more information about Fiji over here, right? There are country code, whether the country is already an independent country or not, what is the status of it, then the currency information of the country, then what is the capital of the country, then in which region the country is in, what is the sub-region, what are the different languages that people speak in that country, what is the latitude and longitude, where this particular country is situated, whether the country has a landlocked, what is the total area, and then how does the flag look like for that country, what is the map of that country, the population information of it, the car sign, whether there is a right sided driving or the left sided driving, what's the time zone, what's the continents. There are a lot of information, right, for you to play with. So what we're going to do, we'll be using this API, but there are many other APIs also available that you can explore. You can always look into this documentation and be more creative about what are the things that you want to build. But we are going to build something which is like, we'll put a text box where user can come and input a country name, search for that country. We get all the details of the country, like what is this flag, we'll show the flag, then the name of the country, maybe the population, etc. And then we can improvise this application a little bit more because we have the latitude, longitude, right? Now we can pass this latitude, longitude information to a map library maybe, and then get it in the map, like in the map, world map, where exactly this particular country is situated, right? We can do that. There is a time zone information. Maybe we will be able to do something with that because it gives us the time zone. It doesn't give the exact time of the land when we are accessing the application. Maybe we will be able to translate it from the time zone. What is the exact time? For example, right now, whatever the time in USA is not same in India, it's not same in Norway, right? It's different. But if we know the time zone differences, we'll be able to calculate the time somewhere. So let's see if we can do that as well. So there are a lot of interesting things to do. I hope You will be with me. Get started with your favorite code editor. Let's code together. Thanks to all the supporters and the subscriber of tapaScript channel. I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the support that you've given so far. Thanks to all the members who really taken that extra step to join the membership of this channel. It means a lot because whatever I get back from your membership, I give back to the community. I have a community called React Play, which is an open source project community. We conduct a lot of events, offline events, meetups, so it has some expenses. So you also actually help in the part of achieving that. Thank you very much for help building the global community. All right, so you're seeing the VS Code. Let's get started with the coding. Let us first bootstrap a project. How are you going to do the bootstrapping? I have been doing the project in a way like creating an index.html file, then creating an index.js file. But this time, let's do it a little bit differently. Same way how we have seen in the last live, where we have built that inventory dashboard. We are going to use an utility that we have created. The utility name is js-base. So you can give the command npx, then tapaScript, and then js-base. It is publicly available. It helps you to create a JavaScript scaffolding, a JavaScript application with Tailwind CSS. We'll be using Tailwind CSS now instead of normal CSS so that we can code faster and focus on our JavaScript logic than doing a lot of CSS thing. Though every CSS that I'll be using, copying, pasting, or whatever I'll be doing, I'll be explaining what they do, but I don't want to spend a lot of time by hand coding the CSS. Rather, I want to spend the time in coding JavaScript and explaining you what is happening under the hood. Okay, so let's execute this command and let's follow along. I'm doing npx tapaScript JS base is asking, okay, you are creating a project. What do you want to give the project name? Let me give a name country hyphen explorer because we are going to explore different countries. Do you want to use Tailwind CSS? Yes, I am going to use that. So it's going to create this entire project structure for me, going to install all the required libraries and set everything for me in a while. It's done. Now, if I do ls, I'll find country explorer inside this. So let's go to country explorer. I have the country explorer and here I have to just do yarn start to start my project. With yarn start, it is now running on localhost 3001. Now let's go ahead and access localhost 3001. Yeah, I see the basic app is running, which came up with that scaffolding. I'm going to remove all these things, but good to know that things are running. Let's go back to VS Code. Here you go. We have this country explorer project. It gave me a SSC folder. Inside that, I have main.js, index.css file, and we have an index.html file as well. All right, so let's go ahead and we got a bunch of HTML with the scaffolding. So I'm going to remove them because I'm not going to use them for sure. Let me call it as country explorer. We have a ssc main.js already linked from this HTML. This is the main.js file, which is having a console.log hello world. Let's change it to country explorer. Awesome. Now let's go to UI. Of course, we'll see it blank because we have removed all the HTML tag, but we are seeing a country explorer from the main.js. That means let's start coding. The first thing first, what we are envisioning. We are envisioning a UI where there will be a text box, and in this text box, user can type a country name, and then there will be a button, let's say search. Once the search is hit, I will be able to see the country information over here, maybe a country flag, then country name, etc. Later point in time, we can also bring a map over here, and this one is where we can show the country information, right? So let's target this much. So first thing first, I need an input box, a button. So let's create that first. Then we'll create a div to hold the country information. We'll have a div to hold the map information. And you all know about the DOM manipulations, DOM, everything that you have learned from 40 days of JavaScript. We're going to use a bunch of those to populate each of this area, also to bring interactivity on this button, right? So let's go back to code. Let us take a parent div and add a bunch of class so that it sits in the middle, having some gap from the surrounding. Margin auto, mx auto, and then padding. Inside this div, let us add a heading which says country explorer. Let's add a few class to it. Then let's add a few style to this h1, the h1 tag, like a bigger heading. So by 3xl and then making the font bold. So far, whatever we have added, we should see a heading Country Explorer appearing on our web page. Great. So we see a Country Explorer. I think it's worth adding a few classes to the body as well so that we can have a better background color, that kind of thing. So here I have added a dark gray background color, which will be very dark, close to black, and a text white. Okay. Now it's time that we add a div for the text box and the button. Just below the header div, we have added one more div which has an input box and a button. The input is of type text, of course, because we will enter the country name. We have an ID called search input, using which we'll be able to access this element in the JavaScript. And then there is a placeholder called enter country name and a bunch of classes like giving a border to the text box, giving some padding, making the text box rounded, giving 100% width of it, that kind of thing. And then there is a button whose ID is search button so that we can access it again. And then there is a class like, make the background as blue, text as white, giving some padding and making the button rounded. And the input box and the button both are inside a div. And we have also taken care of the responsiveness so that we have added the appropriate breakpoint, and in each breakpoint, how exactly this will flow. Okay, so far, let's see the UI. Okay, great. So we see this Country Explorer having this text box and this search button. If I increase this, they're going to sit side by side. If I decrease it, they're going to sit one after another, because that's how we have given the breakpoint and the flex layout properties. So far good, but there's no interaction. And then we have to create a div, a placeholder, where we can add the country details. Once user finish adding the country name, hit the search button, where in the UI the country details should come and sit. For that purpose, we have this div. So you can imagine, like in our JavaScript, we will fetch this div, this element using this ID, and we will try to put the information about the country inside it. We also told that we need a section for map, isn't it? So let's get another div with ID map and a bunch of classes which give some kind of top margin, height, etc. And we will add the map dynamically over here. We'll come to the map section, like how to do the map, how to initialize, and all these things as we code. Great. So this much is enough for our UI. We don't need really more than this. But as a good coding practice, I would add two more things. We will be making the asynchronous call, right, on that country API, REST countries API, to fetch the data. And that call will happen over the network. You might want to show certain kind of loading indicator. So for that purpose, I will add a div with the ID called loader. Initially, we'll make it hidden. We will show it only when we initiate the call, and we'll hide it again. We get back the response. So the loading will show, then you get the response, loading will be hidden. Right? So this is what it is. And then let's add one more placeholder. If there is an error, some kind of error occurs, where are we going to show that error? For that purpose, we'll be adding another div with an ID error with the same philosophy, that it will be hidden in the beginning, and when there is a real error, we will show it, and maybe we will hide it again when the new data gets loaded. So a very quick recap of the HTML. We have a heading, then we have a section where we have the input text box and the button. Then there is a section for showing loading. There is a section for showing error. There is a section where we show the country details once we fetch the data. And there is a section for showing the map, that where in the world map this particular country is situated. This is what all about our UI structure. If I go back and quickly inspect, I should be able to see all these things just now we spoke on the DOM already, right? Is there, everything. So great, we can start coding the JavaScript part of it. Let us start by creating a function called fetch country. Function fetch country. And this will accept what? This will accept a country name. Imagine it gets the country name, and after getting the country name, what it is supposed to do? It is supposed to make a call to that REST API that we have seen in the beginning, right? restcountries.com/v3.1/name/the actual country name, right? So that's the API. So if we see the API structure, now if this is your URL, we can use the async await, right? We know async await with the JavaScript web API called fetch, where you can pass this URL to get the response back. Fetch will by default make a get call, HTTP method get call on this URL to fetch you the response. That's all we know. And we know some good practices already from the previous videos, that we have to handle error. And that's the reason we will keep everything inside the try catch. Okay. Now, first thing first that we are going to do is we are going to make a fetch call. Now what fetch call does? Fetch call takes an URL. First of all, this is our URL. I'm going to cut it and then going to paste it. And once it has a URL, it returns a promise. It doesn't return you the data directly. As it returns a promise, we have to resolve this promise. There are a couple of ways that you can do it using handler method like then, or you can simply use the await keyword. This will resolve the promise and give you the result back. And in this case, the result that we'll get back is a response. So we'll take that inside our variable. All these are fine, but as you're using the await keyword inside the function, you have to make sure that you use the async keyword with the function. Otherwise, JavaScript is going to shout because you cannot use the await keyword inside a function without using async keyword for the function. So you have maintained this rule so far. Now you have the response. From the response, we know we have a method called JSON inside it. If I call this method, it will return me another promise. As it will return me another promise, I can use the await just like before to resolve this promise. And as the promise gets resolved, I get the actual data back that I'm looking for. So I'll hold this data inside the data variable. So far, all good. Now I will do console.log of data. Okay, we'll be proceeding further one by one, but for now let's have only this much. Along with that, let's handle this catch error part. You remember that we have a section for this error. By default it is hidden because we have added a Tailwind CSS class called hidden. If you add that, you won't be able to see that on UI. So what we'll do when there is an error happen, first thing we're going to do is to remove this hidden class from this so that this div is visible, and then add the error message to it. So for that purpose, first of all, query the error div, error element using document.getElementById, by ID, and you pass this error over here because that's the ID, and you get this particular error element. Once you have the error element, you can come inside this catch, do error element dot class list. You have to remove the class called hidden. That's the first thing we wanted to do. And after that, what you want to do, you want to do error dot text content equals to, now you have to put the error message that will get from this error object, err dot message. In case the message is not available, you can do a default message saying that failed to load the country information. However, okay, this is good. This is good. Now, one thing I'll tell over here, I have named this variable as error. Sometime you also name this particular variable also as error. So make sure that you don't have a variable name conflict. What I would suggest, if you want to call this as error, ERROR, you cannot call this one as error. In that case, be explicit by adding something called ELEM, so that it is quite clear that this is an error element that you are dealing with. So these are the small things when you're coding, make sure that you are careful about it. This is good so far. Now, what if this particular function gets called two times? First time, there is an error. So directly control will come inside the catch block. You have removed the hidden style from it. So the error is shown. Great. Next time, this becomes successful. So you are not coming inside this catch block. You are actually getting the data, but still your error will be shown because last time you had removed that hidden class from here. Okay, now you don't want that. So that's the reason every time this fetch country gets called, I want to make sure that I add back this hidden always. In case there is an error anyway, I'm removing it, but every time this gets called, I want to make sure that I add it. Okay, now along with header, there is one more thing is called loader. Let's take care of that as well. So just like error, let us first query the loader element. We got the loader element. Here we are making this fetch call. That means until this response and the data, everything gets resolved, I have to show this loading indicator. But in HTML, the loader is by default hidden. So first thing that I have to do is the opposite of error, right? I have to do loader.classlist.remove.hidden because I want to show this loading message the moment somebody makes a call to this particular function. And then once I get back the response, get back the data, I want to again hide it back. To hide it back, I have to simply do loader.classlist.add and again add this particular class called hidden. It will be hidden. But the question now, what is the right place to add that? Should I add it here and say add so that the loader will be hidden? Or should I add somewhere else? Now imagine the case. Someone called this method with a country name. You activated the loader. It's showing loading, loading, loading. Then at this place, it got an error. So it means that it is not going to retrieve this country data at all. It will go to this catch. It will show the error, but it will still show the loading messages because your hiding code for loading messages is the line number 15. But if you get an exception from the line number 12, your line number 15 will never get executed. So you'll jump from line number 12 to directly to line number 17, and unfortunately your loading message will be still be shown. Okay, now you will say in that case, the first thing that we should do is in the catch block also, we should hide this loader. I agree with you. In both the cases, in the catch and the case where you are not getting the error success case, you should be hiding this loader. But the problem here, we are repeating this code twice. Instead of that, I have taught you about the finally, right? In our JavaScript error and exception session. So you can use finally, and instead of repeating it twice, you just do it once in the finally and get rid of it from all other places where you have added. How does finally work, guys? Irrespective of whether you're executing try or catch, whether both got executed or one of them got executed, finally is guaranteed to get executed. So it means that if you are in the success case, after the success case, your finally will be executed where your loader will be hidden. If there was an exception after the error case, your loader will still be hidden because finally will be executed, right? So this is how I have arranged my initial version of the code. Sounds good or not? Great. Now I have to call this method called fetch country. Okay, so I have to call this fetch country by passing a name. Now twist in the tail, how do I get the name? Where do I get the name from? I cannot hard code it like saying India. It will work only for one country. But my job is whenever somebody typing something in this input box and then hitting the search button, only then I have to collect what user is typing inside this input box. That's my country name. And I have to pass then to this fetch country method and then need to get the information and display. So let's do that part. The input box got an ID called search input. So it means I can query that particular element using document.getElementById by ID and passing its ID. So I get the search input. Similarly, we have a button with an ID called search button. So I can copy the search button and can add the search button equals to document.getElementById by ID search button. So good enough. Now next what I can do, when somebody click on the search button, I have to grab the text that user has written inside the input text. So when somebody click on search button means I have to now add a event listener to the search button. So let's do that. How can I do? Search button dot add event listener. What kind of event? Of course, a click event. And once somebody click on it, I want to handle it using this particular event handler function. So inside this event handler function, whatever I will write, that will execute when someone click on this button. Now, first thing I need when somebody click on this button is to grab what user have written inside the search input. I already have search input inside this particular variable, the reference to it. So if I do search input dot value, because it's a text field, I can grab it using value, and then I can do a trim because if there are spaces that will be trimmed off, and can take this particular and can take the output of it inside a variable, can name it as country. Now if the user has not entered anything or only given spaces, in that case I can put a validation. If the country is not available, then just simply return, don't do anything. Otherwise, I have the method now, right, called fetch country. I can call fetch country and I can pass the country as an argument to this call. Now fetch country is async method, so I have to use, of course, await. And as I'm using await inside this function has to be an async function. So far, I think things are great. Now, if I type something, some country name, hit the search button, it is going to read that particular country name. And then fetch country will be called, passing this country name. Then this API will call. If I have passed a country name that exists, then I will get a response. From there, I'll get a data. And I should see a country data logged into console.log file. So let's type a country name. Let's type Denmark and say search. Okay, I get an error saying cannot read the properties of null reading trim. Let me see and try to fix this. Oops, there is some autocomplete happened which I didn't notice. It should be value. Okay, let's save it. Let's go back. Let's say India and do search, loading, and then we get some response over here. Great. Let me expand this response. It seems it's an array. So that response that I get is an array, and inside that array, there is an object. If I do that particular array's 0th element, that is going to give me the actual country information, right? So I'll go back and I have this data which I printed. So from this data, let us get const country equals to data of 0. That is the object where all the country information is there. Now here I can do some validation. So for example, by chance, I have given a wrong country name that doesn't exist. So this is going to give me maybe an undefined. So if there is no country, I can now throw a new error saying that invalid country name, right? This is how you will be handling the error scenarios as well. Now I have the country. From country, I can pick up different kind of things. For example, country's flag information, country's name information, what's the capital of the country, how much the population of the country, what are the different languages are there in the country, right? All these things. I need an access to this country details div because this is where I'll be inserting all the country details. So for that purpose, I'll copy this ID, go back to main.js file, and we'll get country details. So country details equals to document.getElement by ID, country details. I have country details now. So after getting the country from the data, over here, I can do country details dot inner HTML equals to, here I can start populating all the information. Okay. As I'm doing inner HTML, I can insert an HTML directly over here. So let's start with the div tag. Inside this div tag, I'll be inserting all the required details. Let's add some class to it. So for example, some padding to this div, some border, the border should be rounded, there should be a shadow added, box shadow added to it, all these things. Inside this, let us add one image tag. That we do with image img src equals to, what will be the image? What are we going to show here? We're going to show the country's flag. So inside the country object, there is a flags attribute. Inside that, there is a PNG and SVG attribute. So I can take country dot flags dot svg. So this is going to give me the flag of that country. Now I can add a alt tag because this is for accessibility, and let's add some classes as well. Just like the loading and error, every time this particular function gets called, you don't want to keep appending or keep replacing the thing on the country details. Rather, one good thing would be that at the beginning of it itself, I can actually set this one as an empty string so that everything in the country details gets cleaned up first, and then we start adding the required HTML to it, right? So let's see if we get to see at least the flag of the country or not. Let's go back to Country Explorer. Let's try Denmark and let's say search. Loading, yes. So every country that we go over here, for example, Australia, search. Yes, this is Australia's map. Now, as we have seen how to bring the flag of the country, I can now start adding all other required details. For example, to get the name of the country, I can do country.name.common. That is going to give me the name of the country. What is the capital of the country? I can print the capital of the country using country.capital. How much is the population of the country? So we have an attribute called country.population. I can do country.population.toLocalString because it's a big number. You want to show it in a formatted way. So that's why toLocalString is what I have used. Then how many languages a country has? If you go to this languages, this is actually an object having bunch of languages over here. Now if you want to show these languages, you have to do some amount of computation on top of this to show the language, right? So let's do that. Instead of doing it over here, just before this in our HTML, we can do like const languages equals to, if I do country dot languages, this is going to give me all the languages, that particular object. So if this exists, then taking the country dot languages, we can pass it in the object dot values method. In the object class, I have explained what object dot values does, iterators and everything. Now this is going to return me an array iterator, and that what I can do a join. That means all those countries value that we have seen from the array iterator, I get all the values will be now comma separated, and then it will be a single string of languages. And if by chance country.languages not exist over there, I can add a fallback with an NA. Okay. After doing this, I'll continue filling this up. So after population, let us print the languages what we have computed at the top. So far so good. We have completed this much, but let's see how it works. Let's do Australia again, Australia, and do search, loading. Yes. Now we are seeing the flag, we are seeing the country name, the capital, the population, and the language. Let's do Denmark. Search, we see Denmark, its flag, its capital, what's its population, and what is the language, right? Let's do Norway. Let's do search. Yes, Norway's flag, population. Now you see the languages. There are multiple languages in that country. So we see all the languages are comma separated. This is what the computation that we have done. So we have achieved till this. Now let's get into achieving this map. Hey folks, how are you finding it so far? Are you enjoying building things like this? Step by step, slowly understanding everything. If so, don't forget to like this video. Don't forget to comment below letting me know like how it is going. And if you are someone who has not subscribed to tapaScript, feel free to do it. It will really mean a lot. Okay, so now to do the map, we need something called latitude and longitude. Now each of the country information from this API, we get the latitude and longitude information. That's really great. Now I'm going to use an open source JavaScript library called Leaflet. In case you are not aware of Leaflet, it is a very good library in terms of achieving this map, mostly static but quite friendly and quite easy to use. So you can go ahead and start looking for all these mapping features, but the least that what we're going to use is this code. If you look into this code, this is the latitude and longitude which you already get from the API. So if we pass this latitude and longitude to the set view function, that's going to give me a map, and then the rest of the things would be exactly the copy paste of this. Nothing more than that. To get this library in our code, we have to do some modifications. Come to the HTML file and inside the head, first add the required JS file for leaflet. So this is the URL, https unpackage.com leaflet. This is the version /dist leaflet.js. Same URL is there in the leaflet website as well. You can just bring it. Why we are using async over here? I know that explanation is there in the first video of 40 days of JavaScript. I hope you know it by this time. Apart from the JavaScript, you would also need the CSS that is given by the leaflet library. So that CSS you can actually get and you can paste it over here. Just like how we have done our CSS linking, own CSS linking in case you have a CSS file. This is for the external CSS. href is again from the same place. Inside this, instead of .js, you have the .css. So this is the only configurations that you need for leaflet. Rest, we are going to come to our JS file and we'll start coding for it. Now we are able to fetch the country information and able to render it. We have seen it. Once the rendering is over, it means once this particular country details HTML is been populated, right below this, let's have a function called draw map. And over here, what are the things that I can pass? I have the country information. From the country information, I can pass latlang, which is an array of latitude and longitude. And we can also pass the country's name, which is inside country.common, country.name.common. Excellent. Now let's write the draw map functionality. For that, here, let's create a function called draw map. The first thing was latlang and the next one was the name. As latlang is an array, we can use the array destructuring just like this, lat comma lang equals to latlang, to create two variables. One is lat, another is lang, and assign the lat and lang value respectively. All right. Now the same code, whatever we have seen in that website, I'm just going to copy that code. This is a copy pasted code. What I'm doing over here, I'm initializing a map, passing this lat and long. That's it. That's all I'm doing. Now this is initialization. Every time you change the country name and search for a new country, you don't want to initialize the map again and again. In fact, the library itself is going to tell you that the map has already been initialized if you want to initialize the map again and again. So for that purpose, what I can do over here, I can check whether map is already initialized or not. In case map is not initialized, only then initialize the map. Otherwise, if the map is already initialized, that means you don't have to do l.map.map again. Okay, this map is nothing but that ID, this particular div ID here, this particular div ID where we have to initialize the map. You don't have to do this again. You just need to call this set view in that case. So you already have the map in that case, and you will do a dot set view. That's it. Okay, this much is the code. Now you can do little more improvisation on top of this code. For example, it will show you the country's map in the world map, but you still want to put a pin over there and want to do something like, focusing on that pin with the country name. All this thing you can do. Again, that code is very much over here. This is the code for the pin on the same latitude longitude on the map. You are giving a pop-up. In this pop-up, I can actually add the country's name and I can open the pop-up. That pop-up will be like a pin pop-up. Okay, so I can copy this code as it is from here. I'm not really doing anything fascinating, but I'm building something which might look cool. Okay, and I'm pasting over here. Instead of hard-coded latitude longitude, I have given the actual latitude longitude that makes sense to me, that my map. Then bind pop-up, I'm giving the country name that I'm passing to this particular draw map function, and then open the pop-up. Okay, only thing that I have not done, I have to initialize this map, let map, right? Let's say let map. So this let map is been used inside the draw map, and we have initialized if the map was not initialized. If it is initialized, we are just setting the view with the latitude longitude, and we are showing that marker over there. That's all. Okay, it's time to try things out. Let's give Denmark as the country again, and let's do search. Okay, I get an error saying LNG is not defined. I'm getting a map, but nothing is rendering. Okay, let's see. I think again some variable name mistake. Okay. So I have used LNG over here, but lang over here, not good. I have to change at least one of them. Let's change this to LNG, save it. Let's go back. It happens when you do live code. And now we'll try Denmark, search. No error, and we are also able to see Denmark being pointed over here. You see over here, let me just close it up for you. You see, I can actually zoom in, and not only that, we can also see Denmark over here, and then there is a pop-up, the Denmark over here. If I click on it, it's coming up. Great. Let's see. Something happened to the flag. Okay, let's check another country. For example, Norway. Search. Okay, Norway's flag has come. All the information is there. Norway has been selected on the map. I can zoom out. I can zoom in. All these things I can do. So in the world map, where is this particular country? Now I know. So the map work is done. Are you enjoying it? This is great. Now, next, what we are going to do, let's play with time zone. If I go to the network tab for a moment and let's search another country, maybe Sweden. Let's search for it. Okay, we got Sweden. Now this is the response. In the response, if you see the time zone information, it says it is UTC plus 1, right? This is the time zone. It is indicated over here. Now for some countries, the time zone will be multiple. For example, let's try Mexico. Do a search. So I have the information of Mexico, just like we had for everything else. Now, if I see the response, I see Mexico has 3 time zones. One is UTC minus 8, UTC minus 7, UTC minus 6. Now, these are great, but don't you want to know like what is the exact time in Mexico in this different time zone when you are accessing this UI? Let's do that part. I have the time zone information. From time zone information, I can get the time and I can show the time along with other details. Now, I would love to show this time zone information just after the languages. So we have showed the languages over here, right? So let's add some HTML structure, which is this div. There we have added a H2 saying local time zones, or I can say local times instead of it. And then I have added a UL with an ID called time zone list. Okay. Inside this UL, we'll be adding a bunch of li because that's an array, right? For each of the array entry, we'll take the time zone, convert to the local time, and with an li, we will push inside this UL. That's what we're going to do. That's why this ID will be very handy. Okay, great. So before we draw the map, let us call a function update time zones. We have not written it yet. Passing countries time zones, the array. So let's write this update time zones somewhere at the bottom. Let's do function update time zones. It takes the time zones, and inside this, first get that UL document.getElementById by ID time zone list, and every time we call it, we'll make sure that the inner HTML part of it is set to blank string. And now I have this time zones array. Let's iterate through. I can use something called for each. Each of the thing will be the time zone, and then for each of the time zone, I will first create an li. How do we do it? Document dot create element of li, then get the local time from the time zone. For that, we will write a method called get time using intl, and we'll pass the current time zone. So if I pass the current time zone, it is going to give me the time using the INTL API. We are going to see that. So JavaScript has an INTL API using which you can do a lot of great computations with dates with a very less code. Now let's say this will return me the local time. Once I get the local time, the next thing I'll do li.text content equals to, I will first print the time zone, and for this time zone, what is the local time? Good enough. And the final thing will be this time zone list, this UL I have. In this UL, I'll do an append child and pass this li. You have learned all these things in the DOM module, isn't it? The same thing that right now I'm using together in the project. So I have taken the UL, cleaned it up, it's in our HTML, and for each of the time zone in the time zone array, I'm creating an li, getting the local time for this time zone, and then printing it, the time zone value and the local time value, and adding that li to the UL. That's all. But now I have to give a definition of this particular function, which will convert a time zone to the final time. So let's do that. Function, this guy, which takes a time zone. Now I can use the INTL API, INTL date time format API, which takes few options. So first define those options. First option is the time zone. So we'll pass TZ. Then I want to see the times hour in 2-digit, or I want to see it in the later, whatever it is. All these options we can pass. So here I will say 2-digit. You must look into the INTL API documentation in MDN. Find the link to that in the description of this video. If possible, I have not kept that INTL API in 40 days of JavaScript, but if possible, in the last module, I'll try to keep a video for INTL. That's a bonus. Okay. I'm not promising now, but if possible, I'll definitely do it. Let's see whether you need it or not. If you want to request for it, post a comment. I'll definitely try to make it for you. Okay. Similarly, add two more options like minutes shows in 2-digit and it's a 12 hours clock. Okay. So 12 hours time clock. Now, once I have this, let's do return INTL API. This is from JavaScript, which is having a datetime format method. In this datetime format method, you pass a local, so en us, and then you pass the options, and then you call the format method on top of it, and inside the format method you pass the new date, the current time. In the current time in that particular time zone, what is the time? That's what we want to display. In case there is an error in the conversion or something, let's tackle that as well. We can say console.1 or error time zone, whatever the time zone I'm passing over here, not supported, falling back, unsupported time zone, we can actually return. Okay, so this is good, but there is a problem. The way that we get the time zone in the response, these options doesn't accept the time zone in that particular format. So we have to convert whatever we get as a response, the format of the time zone. There we get like UTC plus minus, that particular format. So we have to now convert that to proper format, and the proper format conversion, for that I'll be using an utility method. Now this utility method I have not hand coded or thought from my brain. This is like a library. I've taken it from a library. So you can also use it like in a library. So I'm not writing it. I'm just copy pasting this one. So this is the method I'm going to explain to you. But before that, this is called convert to IANA, which takes an UTC string. So the UTC string is what we get it from the response, and that is there in the time zone. So I will pass that to this, which will give me the correct format that the INTL's datetime formats options expects. That's the only thing. So this convert to IANA, this is the function I've taken from a library. Okay, just for this demonstration sake. What it does is first check whether basic support for known UTC format is there or not, whether this string is equals to UTC or not. But it is always not that, right? It has the +1, -530, all these things. Okay. Then after that, it does a conversion, computation, and then finally send the format that is required. Okay. This is what it does. Now with all these changes, let us try. Let us see whether things works or not. But before that, let's take a quick recap that whatever we have done. This time zone array, we have passed to this update time zones function. We have added a new structure where a heading and a UL with an ID. Inside the function, first we get the UL element so that we can add the LI elements dynamically. For each of the element in the time zone, I am iterating through, creating an LI and adding the converted time. That is very simple. This is very, very simple. Now to get this converted time, I'm using the JavaScript INTL API. In that datetime format, this particular method is there, which actually convert the current time into this particular time zone. For that, I have to use this option. Now, problem is the way I get the response for each of the time zone. This particular option doesn't accept in that way. So I have to convert it. For that conversion, I'm using a library method. Okay, this is what it is. Let's go and see whether we have made any mistakes or everything is right. Let's try with Mexico. Search. Awesome. So you see this, what is happening, right? Mexico's flag. Mexico is the name. Capital is the Mexico City. This is the population. Language is Spanish. Local time. You see? For UTC -8 time zone, right now in Mexico, it is 2:28 a.m. In Mexico, right now, in another time zone, 3:28, another time zone is 4:28. Okay, let's try Australia for a change. Search. For Australia, you have this many time zone, right? They are differentiated by like 1 hour, 1.5 hour, or half an hour. Like, so what is the time there right now? You're getting everything. And you also have the map right at the bottom, which you can zoom out, can see like where Australia falls in the world map. Pretty easy. Actually build something very handy, isn't it? You can use this. You can basically use this to know like about every country, and you can know their population, different time zone. It could be very handy for you. What do you think? Is useful? Let me know in the comment. Now a quick task for you. The task is, can you enhance this particular application where you add a button at the bottom, and the button should says it's, and the button should allow user to save a particular country as their favorite. Okay, and they can save multiple countries as their favorite. This is your task. So a button, every time someone click on this button, this particular country will be added as their favorite and will add that information into browser local storage. Okay, so this is what we want to do. Next point in time, whenever you come to this application, there will be show favorite link. Clicking on the show favorite, it will show what are the favorite countries are added into local storage. I think you can improvise on top of this and add this functionality pretty easily. So my friends, that's all for today. I hope it was insightful. I hope you enjoyed learning from doing this coding. Both the projects, whether it is inventory dashboard or this country explorer, you can always try to enhance it, improvise on top of it. It will be really awesome. If you happen to do any enhancements, please make sure that you host your application on Netlify or Vercel or Render, wherever it is. Share the link on the Discord. Would love to see you what you have done on top of this. All right, so with this, a great thing happened. We are done with the asynchronous JavaScript and debugging module. So in this module, we have taken all this, and now this mini project is also over. I'll just mark this as done. So what's next? I have given you an assignment to improve this application. But next is to get into module 5, the module that I'm very, very excited about, because it's a long desire to teach people about object-oriented programming. And this is where I'm going to stepping into object-oriented programming in JavaScript using classes, objects, prototype chain, and all these things. Along with this, we'll also learn about the modules. We'll be also learning about other data structure like map, set, weak map, weak set, their real use cases and usages. If you don't want to miss that, subscribe to tapaScript, join tapaScript as a member. Let's learn together. Let's learn things fundamentally. At the same time, let's be very efficient in terms of our problem solving and logic building. See you soon with next module where object-oriented programming will be demystified. Take care. Keep learning.